Alrighty, got the wife's Jeep pulled into the shop to do a little work on it today. It's a 2001 Wrangler, of course, got the 4-liter in it, automatic transmission. We bought it back last fall. 118,000 miles on it, and we bought it knowing it had a couple of issues that would need to be addressed. So I'm finally getting around to doing that today. What are we doing? First of all, we are going to replace the fuel injectors. It's got an issue on startup. It's when you crank it up, first you have to crank it a couple times to get it to fire, and then lots of times it wants to idle rough for just a quick second before it smooths out. For a few seconds it'll run rough. And in doing some research and stuff, I've determined, and still without any real diagnostics, this is just guesswork, but it's what I'm going with, that I've got a fuel injector or one or more fuel injectors that's leaking down. Here's why I think that. Here a while back, checked the oil in it. It was overfull, had 1,500 miles on the oil change. And I had checked it, always check it after I get it full to make sure it's not overfull or underfull. And but it was overfull and smelled of gas. So obviously I'm getting gas past some rings there somehow. So that and a couple other, doing some research and what have you, talking to some mechanic friends, we believe that it needs some fuel injectors. So I ordered these. These are the 4-hole fuel injectors. You can't see that. Maybe you can. 4-hole fuel injectors. The stock ones are single hole, and the theory behind the 4-hole is that it provides better atomization of the fuel, which in theory should increase fuel economy and performance. I don't expect to see significant gains as long as it smooths the engine out and it runs better and cranks better and doesn't leak fuel into the oil. That's my main thing. If we see increase in performance or an increase in fuel economy, great, gravy on a biscuit. But I'm just looking to smooth this idle out and improve the startup. Also, I'm going to install what's called the Viper mod. Get rid of the, what am I thinking here? Coil pack rail on it and install this. This is called the RIP supercharger coil pack system. Now, I know some of you are going to see this. I already said it's a 4-liter, 2001, obviously. And it says here on the box, 2007 to 2011, 3.8-liter engine. I saw that too when I opened it up, pulled it out of the box it shipped in. I just got off the phone with K Suspension. This is who I ordered this stuff through. Got off the box with K Suspension just a few minutes ago, and they say, yes, this is correct. This is, in fact, even though it says 3.8-liter, this is the one for this mod. Got the mounting bracket and hardware, new spark plug wires, extension for your signal harness, and we're going to install that. What that will do is remove the coil pack rail. The new ignition system is going to install right here behind the alternator, using a couple existing holes on the block. That'll make your spark plugs more accessible for service, changing those out, anything like that. And supposed to, again, improve performance. We'll see. So that's what I got going on today. I do have a scan tool that I bought. Got the X Tool D7 that I'm going to play around with a little bit and see if I can get some live data, both before and after. We'll see. I'm not real good with it yet. I'm learning. Any of you that have watched my videos before have heard me say I'm not a mechanic. I'm just a Dad trying to be a dude. What am I doing here? I'm just trying to figure things out. Years ago, I would have paid somebody to do this. In my early days, in my early 20s, I was a broke college kid. I tried to do what I could. Of course, I drove vehicles where you had to have a toolkit in the back because you never knew when you were going to break down. So I did a lot of my work in my early 20s. I'm 50 now. In my early 20s, I did it because I was broke. I didn't have the money, and if I could, I figured it out myself. Now, I just hate the idea of spending money when it's probably something I can do myself or figure out how to do it and save that money, especially on labor. So I try to figure out as much of this stuff as I can now, just to see if I can I figure it out. A lot of these videos that I put out, that's one of the purposes behind it is, can I figure it out? I think this one will be pretty straightforward. It's not too difficult. I have watched some videos on YouTube on replacing the injectors. Not a big job, just getting all the stuff off that you got to get off to access the injector rail. So now let's see if I can do it myself. Case Suspension has a video on installing the Viper Mod ignition system, and I've watched that. Pretty straightforward. So we'll see what I can do. This is not meant to be a how-to video at all. This is just, can I figure it out and see the results before and after. Let me start it up and see if we can get it to replicate what it's been doing. See if we can pick it up on camera. You'll see I first have to getting in here is going to be fun. First have to crank it a time or two, most times. Oh, it's making a liar out of me. It's made a liar out of me. That it rarely does that. It rarely starts up that easy. Of course, when I go to shoot a video, it makes a liar out of me. Well, you'll just have to trust me. You can hear it. Maybe you can hear it. It's just a little rough. All right, so it made a liar out of me. That's how it goes, though. Normally I have to crank it twice, sometimes a third time to get it to fire. So there's that. I don't think it's a fuel pump because I've tried cycling the key 2, 3, even 4 times without cranking to let it pressurize. And that doesn't seem to help until we fire it up and the injectors actually start pulsing and doing their job. At any rate, I won't record this whole thing for a couple of reasons. Going to be about 100 degrees today. No AC in the shop. Got my big fan that'll be going, so that's going to be a bunch of noise. TV on the wall is going to be playing a movie in the background just for some noise. Got to worry about copyright stuff there. So, and because it's going to be 100 degrees, I'll be working with my shirt off. Nobody wants to see that. Too much fat. So this will be a fat-free video. Hello, Archer. Good boy. It's going to be hot today, isn't it? Him's a good boy. Yes, he is. Come here, get some love. Him's a good dog. Yeah, he is. All right, got the tool cabinet rolled out here. Got everything set up. Let's get to work. I'll be back. And we're done. All right, they're in. Taking me pretty much all day to tackle this. Not because it's a hard task, but I've got my 10-year-old son home today, and I didn't want to leave him in the house all day long by himself, so I spent some time with him in there. So, and not to mention the fact is, at one point this afternoon, 105 in the shop. So I took my liberties, went in and took some breaks, and so it took me all day. Now, the average person, first of all, the mechanic that knows what he's doing has done this before, or has good knowledge of it could probably do it in an hour or less. I did say that this was not going to be a how-to video, and it is not intended to be that. It's a can I do it video. And so in the interest of that, I will go over the steps just so that you can see, you can maybe determine, use this to determine, is it something you want to tackle, okay? So, first steps, got to remove your air intake tube. Hose clamp there, take it off, set it off the side, disconnect this hose here. Next step, you need to remove your throttle cable, kickdown cable, and cruise control cable if you have it, okay? Those are not difficult to remove. This one here, I believe, is the throttle cable. That one you wedge a flathead screwdriver in there and just pop it right off. This one and this one, you just slide them off the end. You see the cable coming in, and this little boot right here is what connects and holds it on. So you just pop those off, okay? And then there's two 10mm bolts, one right there and one right there. Take those out, and then you can just flop your and disconnect these lines coming in, your 3 cables or 2 or 1, whatever you have. Should have at least 2. Disconnect or pull those out of the loom there and just lay them over to the side there. Next step, you need to disconnect your fuel line coming in, and that you'll need a tool. You can make your own tool, but I have a fuel line tool, okay, and that just slides on there and releases the elect. I also have this style as well. Any fuel line tool will work. Disconnect your fuel line, which comes in right here to the end of your fuel rail, injector rail. Disconnect that, set it back out of the way. Coming back over here, you'll need to disconnect this plug and this plug so that you can lift this loom up and that'll help get it out. Now, you can disconnect this right here. Mine was being stubborn and I didn't want to break it, so I did not disconnect it. It would make it easier if you could disconnect it and remove that. You will then need to disconnect your injector plugs, okay, from the connectors or from the injectors. If you look closely, there's a little red safety tab. Pull that up, and then it's just a squeeze and pull to get those off. Those are brittle. If you like this one, 2001, 120,000 miles on it. That's been through a lot of, drive cycles, heating and cooling cycles, so they do get brittle. Be careful. If you get stuck on how to get those off, trick that I use when I'm working with a connector that I've not used before or not too familiar with is I go and look at the part that I'm replacing, how it plugs into it, and that will often tell me how the best way to go about removing it. I didn't have too much difficulty, but with one, and I just used a pick to get it out. And then there are 4 bolts on the ends of the fuel rail here and back here. That's hot. I just drove it. Don't touch it. Those are studs, so you got to take the nut off the top first. On each one, it holds a bracket that a sensor is held by, so you remove the bracket and then you remove the stud once you take the bracket off. The 2 center ones, which are located right there. I don't know if you can see it, right up in there. Let me get my flashlight. Tip for the DIY guy, always carry a pocket flashlight with you. This is one of the ones that I carry. There it is, right, I'm getting a glare. There, and one right there, okay? 10 millimeters. Those 4, and the 2 that hold, oh, I forgot, the 2 that hold your throttle bracket there, they're all 10 millimeters. You can literally do this with a 10 millimeter and a screwdriver and a a removal tool, fuel line tool. And if you're crafty, you can make your own fuel line tool. It's that easy. All right, so remove all that, and then you pull the fuel rail out. Wiggle it up and down. Don't put a lot of pressure, you know, but even pressure, and it'll eventually work its way out of there. Now, before you do all this, I should have said this to start. Before you do all this, mine had a bunch of crud in up around here. Dust, dirt, build up from, you know, 120,000 miles worth of driving. I took some compressed air and blew around, all around there real good. Blew as much debris out as I could, much dirt and grime. If you don't have compressed air, an air compressor, get you know, a shop vac, something, anything to try to clean that out a little bit so you don't get a bunch of those dust particles falling down in there. When you once you're done, you pull the injector rail, the fuel rail, and the injectors will come out with it. And then I just laid it out on top of my toolbox and removed each fuel rail or each injector. There's a metal clip that holds them in. There, you can see it right there. That just pops off with a screwdriver. Look at it, study it, you'll figure out how to get that off. That it just pops right off with a screwdriver, and it pops right on back on real easy. Your fuel injectors have these little slots right here. Okay, you can see how it goes around. This is the end that sticks up in the fuel rail, and then you see your two slots, the clips slip down in those slots and help retain it on. Pull out your old fuel injectors, clean your fuel rail, your inlets there for your injectors, clean those real good, and then push your new ones in. Mine, the O-rings, came pre-oiled. It's a good idea to put some sort of lube on them. I use just regular machine oil. I had some light machine oil from some of the machining stuff that I do out here. That's what I had handy. That's what I used. You can use petroleum jelly, you know, Vaseline, grease, anything like that. Just make sure it's something that's not going to hurt the rubber O-rings. Anyways, put a little oil on those so that they slide in without tearing the O-rings. Otherwise, you got to pull it back out and replace the O-ring. And then you snake it back in there and pop them back in their holes and reconnect everything in reverse order. Can you do it? Yeah. Yeah, if you can change the oil, if you can change spark plugs, you can do this. No major tools, okay? No specialty tools. That hose fuel line tool, you know, is cheap. And if you're going to be doing any kind of DIY, you know, it's good to have in your toolkit. So, yeah, you can do this. It is not a difficult job. After reinstalling, K-Suspension, where I got these from, shows a process of disconnecting the battery. I already had it disconnected. Anytime I'm working with fuel under the hood, I disconnect the battery. But you disconnect. I had the negative disconnected, just set off to the side. And after I was done, I disconnected the positive. And with both of them disconnected from the battery, obviously very important, you touch the positive and the negative cable together for about 30 seconds, and then put them back on. And they showed a thing of going in, turning your key to the on position, not crank, but to the on position where all your dash lights come on just before crank, and turning your headlights on, turning your headlights off, turning your key back off, and that resets the ECM. The purpose of resetting the ECM is for the computer to relearn the mapping of your fuel injectors. Now, I kind of suspect that additional step of touching the two together may not have been necessary, because, like I say, I was out here, in and out here, working on this all day long over the course of several hours. And so with that battery being disconnected, I'm thinking maybe that would have reset the ECM. I know a lot of times if you have trouble codes, a check engine light on, you can disconnect the battery, you know, the negative cable for, you know, 5-10 minutes, whatever, and that will reset those codes. You know, I don't know. Did that do it? I don't know. I went ahead and did the process anyways. So the install process, removal and replace process is pretty simple. I think anybody with not even average mechanic skills can do this. You know, it's not that difficult of a job. And if you can get on it and stay on it and stick with it, you can have it done in an hour or less, for sure. So there's that. So now I suppose the question is, did it make a difference? More specifically, did it fix my specific issue? And the short answer is, I'm not sure yet. I've driven it about 30 miles now, and it does seem to run a little smoother. But, you know, that's a by feel thing. Unless it was just running completely terrible, which it wasn't. It was just running not as smooth as it could be. But just running down the road, it does seem to be a little more responsive. It does seem to run smoother. I drove it down the road a little ways, pulled in at the Dollar General to get a couple of things, and when I come back out, you know, I was in there about 10 minutes. When I come back out, it fired right up and idled super smooth right away, like it should. So that on that first time, yeah, I was like, oh wow, nice. But then I drove back to the shop, shot that little segment there talking about can you do it, and that took what, 8 or 9 minutes, and hopped back in the Jeep, come down here to get this shot, to do this last little segment of the video. And when I started it back up, it didn't fire up immediately smooth, and it did it again on me just now. So I suspect this is going to need to go through a few run cycles for the ECM to completely relearn the mapping on those fuel injectors. So we'll see. So you know, K Suspension claims that you may, they're very clear about saying you may, not you will, but that you may see an increase in performance and an increase in fuel economy. We'll see. I'm going to top off the tank. We're going to run it for a few days here, about a week, and see. The big thing that I needed to fix, that I'm hoping that it fixed, is the hard crank. As I stated earlier, oftentimes I had to start it, crank it twice, sometimes a third time, for it to start up, and then it would idle rough for a few seconds and then smooth out, breaking up on idle. But of course this morning when I started it up, it hadn't been started since last night, and it fired right up and idled great. So, you know, and there have been times when it sat for, you know, as much as a couple of weeks, and I go out to start it up after sitting for 2 weeks, and it fired right up just like it should. That's definitely not the norm. 99, 95, 99% of the time, it takes a couple of cranks and it idles rough for a few seconds and then smooths out. So I'm going to have to drive it for the week and see, did that fix the problem? And then that'll give me a better picture. Also, I'll monitor the fuel economy and see if see any noticeable difference there. I usually get about 13 miles a gallon, give or take a little bit depending on the driving situations, you know. But we'll see if that improves any. If it does, great. You know, for a Jeep, I mean, it's a Jeep. First of all, it's 4 liter. It's not like hopping in your hot rod and firing it up and, you know, goosing it barks the tires. You know, it's and throwing, you know, something at it that's going to add 50 or 100 horsepower. You know, it's going to make an immediately noticeable difference. Throw you back in the seat, you know, on takeoff or anything. It's a 4 liter. Many people refer to it as a tractor motor. Just, you know, compare it to a tractor motor, and it runs about like most inline 6-cylinder tractor motors I've ever been around, and 4-cylinder. So, you know, it's not going to be a tremendously noticeable difference. It's not going to be a hot rod without dumping a ton of money into it, you know, and even then, you're going to be limited. It's not an LS or whatever your preferred platform is. But we'll drive it for the week. We'll see if I notice any difference. And I'll follow up on it. You know, a lot of times I see guys do stuff like this, and it's like, you know, you want to know, did what they, the change that they made, did it make a difference? Did it fix their problem? And a lot of times they don't report back and say anything. So I'll do a follow up on it and see what happens. I did not get to the Viper mod, both because of time. As I said, you know, it took me pretty much all day just because I wasn't on it steady between the heat and running in to hang out with my kid. But another reason I did not get to the Viper mod yet is I wanted to see, you know, a lot of times if you throw 2 or 3 changes at something, repairs or fixes, whatever you want to call it, and your problem goes away, well, which one fixed it? You know, so I want to see what the injectors do just by changing them by themselves. I probably should have changed spark plugs. I didn't. I'll probably do that when I do the Viper mod, because you have to pull the coil pack rail off to get to the plug, so it didn't make much sense to do it today if I wasn't going to go ahead and do the Viper mod today. So that'll be another video after we see what this fuel injector mod. I see another Jeep coming. I got to get ready to wave, you know, because the Jeep wave thing, you know. All right, well, I'm gonna wrap that up, go home and put this video together, and we'll follow up with you soon. I got a lot of things I want to do to this thing. I'm having fun with it. These 4 liters I'm learning are not difficult to work on at all. And it's got some issues it needs. I got a valve cover gasket that's leaking. Need to take care of that. I'm pretty sure if the valve cover gasket's leaking, it's probably right to think that the oil pan is probably leaking as well, or is leaking. There's oil all over the bottom of it, though it doesn't leave puddles on the floor, so that's good. So I'll take care of both of those. I think I may have a transmission mount that's worn out or about worn out, and maybe a U-joint or 2, so probably just go ahead and do all the U-joints at the one time. It's fine right now. Good enough for, you know, daily driving and stuff like that. We're not doing any real hardcore off-roading in it, you know. That'll come soon enough. But just a couple of things that I want to do to it. Of course, you know, what do they say about having a Jeep? Just empty every pocket. And I guess this is how it starts. But at any rate, I'm going to sign off for now. And if you got any questions, let me know. I'll answer them to the best of it. Oh, one thing I did forget. I'd mentioned hooking up my new scan tool to it and seeing if there are any DTCs or anything like that. And I did, and it was having an issue connecting automatically, so I had to go through the process of manually entering the VIN number and vehicle information, and then that was taking a while, and so I stopped that video, and then once it connected, there were no DTCs, so I didn't put that part of the video in here. Not a single code appeared. I don't know how much I trust that. I mean, there's no check engine light, but it's not uncommon to have a DTC or some sort of a code in history. And there was absolutely nothing. So, but the diagnostics on it were not Jeep Wrangler specific. We're not 2001 Jeep Wrangler specific. It was, gave me the option of Jeep up to 2003. So that's going to cover ECMs from all your different models. So I'm not 100% confident. I mean, yeah, there's no check engine light, so that's a good sign. But, you know, is there a temporary code or something? I did have a misfire the other day. And, you know, on startup, when it was running rough, on startup, you know, that was misfiring, you know. And so, why didn't it have a misfire code in there? I don't know. Don't know. But as of now, I'm satisfied with it, and we'll play around more with that D7 once I get more experience with it. It's my first scan tool, so I'm learning, trying to learn how to do these diagnostics myself as best as I can. At any rate, I was able to look at some live data, oil pressure and engine temp and stuff like that, and all that appeared to be normal. I'm questioning my oil sending unit. Because sometimes on startup it shows low oil pressure at first, and then immediately goes away, and runs at the oil pressure it should, just above 40, between 40 and 60. When I'm running down the road idling at idle, it's right around 40. And when it's showing that low oil pressure, there's no noise coming from the engine like a knock or anything like that. So and there's some oil on the side of the engine there where the sending unit goes in, and the harness, the connector itself is a little bit dirty and oil soaked. They're fixing to increase water flow at the dam. I don't know if you guys heard that siren or not. Anyways, there it went again. Anyways, I am going to change out the oil pressure sending unit. I'm going to do an oil, I've got a manual oil pressure gauge that I'm going to check that pressure with. On the scanner, it's showing running, you know, upwards of 50 at idle, at cold idle. Now that's cold idle. I need to check it again at hot idle and see how that corresponds with the gauge on the dash instrument cluster. I am also, if this changing out the fuel injectors didn't fix the problem of fuel getting into the oil, obviously I've got some fuel getting past the ring somehow. My thinking was, based on everything that I've been studying and researching and talking with my mechanic friends about, my instinct was injectors. I had a bad injector or two that was leaking down, and that fuel sitting in the piston top was leaking past the rings down into the crankcase. So if it didn't fix that, I'm going to do an oil change again here soon. If it did not fix that, my next step is to go ahead and do a compression test, which I'll probably do that just because. Anyways, when I do the Viper mod and have to pull the what do you call that thing? Coil pack rail. I'm going to be changing the plugs. If I've got the plugs out, I may as well do the compression test at that time, just to get an idea of the health of the engine, how close all the cylinders are in compression. Do I have one or two or more down? And, you know, start to further diagnose problems, and, like I say, get a better picture of the health of this engine. One thing that's cool about this D7 scan tool is, in some models, you can actually perform a compression test with the tool without removing a spark plug, or, you know, connecting a gauge, you know, in place of the spark plug, anything like that. I don't know if I can do it yet with the Jeep. I haven't figured out yet how to do it on any of my vehicles, but it is something that I want to learn how to do, and hopefully I can do it with any and all of my vehicles. If I figure that out and that I can do it with it, we'll make a quick video of that and show you that neat little feature there. All right, I've rambled on enough. If you've watched this till the end, thanks for checking it out. If you have any questions, or if you know, think there's something I need to know that I'm overlooking or not thinking of, go ahead and hit me with a comment, and I'll try to respond back, and appreciate it. All right, take it easy.